potentially too boxy. I'm Naomi, and this is NJ Knits, where I talk about my knitting, and I haven't done so in quite some time. So this is going to be a pretty insanely long one. I have so much to talk about, so much to update you on, and and I even have a little bit of a Q&A that I was going to do about my wedding. I only had like 2 questions anyway. So I'll do that Q&A. So it's just gonna be the longest knitting podcast you've ever watched. Like, you don't need to, binge anything, because you just will have this one episode that will be in itself the equivalent to binging an entire podcast back catalogue of someone, because it's going to be so long. It's been a very long time, and that's for a few reasons. One is I got married. Yay! Oh, my ring's kind of... I got married! And then I went on honeymoon, little mini moon, and then immediately after I... got a little bit of writing on my hand. That's what that is, ink. Immediately after, I then got really ill for 2 weeks. So that's equated to lots of knitting and no podcasting. So I have so much back knitting to show you, as well as so many finished objects, so many whips. I've been on I don't even know how many whips I have, so this will be really useful for me just to find out how many whips I have. I think I've gathered them all into one place. Also, just, I don't even know what's happening with my accent. It's just doing 100,000 different things at the same time. And we're all just going to accept that and be okay with it, because sometimes that's what you want to do. You just want to be free. Anyway, 1,000 whips. And then also, actually quite a lot of acquisitions. So, if you are new here, thank you so much for watching. It's a small little community we have over here, but please feel welcome and join in. I do have a Discord server, which I'm pretty bad at staying in touch with. It depends on what my working situation is. I'll be all over it for a few months, and then I'll not be as all over it, and it depends on if I'm working, and in my work I tend to have a lot of downtime, so then I'll be all over it, replying all the time, and then when I'm working less, I tend to try to focus on doing stuff, so then I do less time on my phone. So anyway, you're welcome to join that. It's a lovely group of people, and we've had some knit night virtual knit nights, which is really nice. So yeah, that's me, and let's get started. So please be welcome and join in. Grab something to drink. I've finished my pot of tea, so I might have to stop and get some at some point. Grab a snack, grab your knitting, grab your crochet, grab anything. I also have some sewing finished objects to show you. Oh, crazy. So let's get into things. I don't know what order I'm going to do any of this in. I'm definitely going to do your finished objects, your whips, your acquisitions, but it might kind of flow. Be a little bit amoebus. I have some energy today, which is amazing because I've been really ill for some time. I still kind of sound ill, but I actually feel like I'm recovering finally. It's been a really long recovery, so I feel anyone out there who's had like long periods of illness, because it's I mean, obviously I just had the, like, you know, it wasn't COVID I tested, but I had like the flu or something for like 2 weeks, but so that's not very much, but it gives me a little like bit of more empathy for people who've had like long illnesses, because it's really kind of like worrying and sort of frustrating, because you do feel like you're improving but you still don't feel like yourself. So anyway, I'm a bit bouncy today, a bit excited. I'm finally in the mood for this, which is really good. I kept trying to do it previously, and I just wasn't in the mood for it, and I was like, this isn't, why would I do it if I didn't want to do it? This is the whole purpose of this, is fun. It's not like, you know. Anyways, so here we go. We're gonna start. So my first finished object would have been what I was wearing, but I took it off because it's actually quite hot up here in the greenhouse of the upstairs, because we have sun today. So let me grab it. This is my first finished object. I need to put a tag in it because I can't. It's hard to tell what's the back and what's the front. I think it's this way around. This was one of my 2 honeymoon whips that I took on honeymoon with me. I didn't finish it on honeymoon, but I finished it later. This is the White Mountains by Midori Hirose of the famous Ranunculus. So this is her White Mountains, and it is a simple raglan top down in the round on worsted or Aran weight. I think it's for worsted weight. It's got little detail on the raglan, which is just a purl stitch, but I think it's enough to like be actually quite interesting. It's got short row shaping, and it's got actually a lot of different options for the collar. So she's written it with, I think, 3 or 4 different options. You can do a funnel neck, you can do a rolled neck, you can do a folded collar like I've done, or you can do just normal ribbing. So it's an oversized, cozy jumper. I've done a folded collar, and it has twisted ribbing on the hem and cuffs, or half twisted actually, just the knit stitch is twisted. And I've done it in Knitting for Olive double mohair. I don't have any of the ball bands left, I don't think, but it's discontinued. They don't sell it anymore. I got it in the sale because I think they were discontinuing it, so it's like £3 something a ball, and I believe I got 5 balls. Don't hold me to that. I think I can check my Ravelry to see how many balls I got. I have another sweater's quantity of this yarn. It's a blown yarn, so it's a chainette construction, I think. This was my leftovers. I have 2 balls of leftovers because when I do the sleeves, I just, if I have the balls, I'll just use the a new ball for the other sleeve if I am not going to be able to finish the sleeve, because I'd rather just start a new ball than have to join, especially in chainette. And this is a fairly loose gauge. I think it was 6mm needles, or I think I went down to like 5mm or 5.5 because I'm a loose knitter. This yarn, a few things to say about it. Firstly, I don't know why, we're going to go American now for this. This is what's happening. So firstly, it's amazingly cozy. It's super cozy. It's like Cozy Central. It's really soft. It has absolutely, as far as I mean, I'm not very itch sensitive, but it's, as far as I can tell, 0 itch. My, Holly, I was going to say my partner, my wife, she was like, yeah, I would have this at my neck. And she's a little bit more sensitive, I would say, than me. It's 0% itchy. It's so cozy. And so it's cotton chainette with merino blown in. And this is the color Flamingo, which I really love. And so it sort of has a little bit of a like marley look to it because of the cotton on the inside. But I'll say 2 things about it. One being, I think it would work better at a tighter gauge, this yarn, because I just think it's like a lot of like superwash merino. It acts similarly in that it stretches and sort of stays stretched, but it doesn't feel like superwash, because I don't think it is. It feels totally different. Sorry, there's one of my neighbor's dogs. Doesn't feel like superwash in any way, but it does that like stretchy thing where it's just like, I'm stretched now. It doesn't have a lot of, at least at this gauge, there's not a lot of elasticity. So if I put it here, it's not, I mean, girl isn't gonna stay there. She's gonna, I have to like do this to get it to like stay rolled up if I want it rolled up. Makes it really cozy. I was worried about the width of the arms, that they were too tight, because I don't like tight arms, but they're not, because they are loose. But it means that this is like, potentially too boxy. It's quite boxy. So I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this. I also think I might want to do something to the collar, or maybe not. I'm not sure. So yeah, I think with the other sweaters quantity, because it's so lovely to feel this jumper, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make something at a tighter gauge, because I think that will keep it from wanting to just like stretch out and be floppy. With my extras, my oddballs, I'm gonna make I think a scarf #1, or I might do one of scarf #1 by by My Favorite Things Knitwear, or I might do one of the Knit Purl Girls Pippin scarves from the Pippin scarf set. I got that pattern as well. So yeah, I think this will make a really nice like mini triangle scarf for my partner, who has decided on the honeymoon that she was stealing my scarf #1s, and that I was going to make her one in every colour because she liked them a lot and they look really nice on her. So yeah, this is the double soft mohair by Knitting for Olive, which is discontinued, but you might be able to find from someone's stash or eBay. Or so, I think there are some places that still stock it, but Knitting for Olive doesn't stock it anymore. So I would highly recommend the yarn, especially if you're sensitive and you want wool, but I think probably a loose gauge isn't I don't think it's at its best. I don't think it's at its best in this gauge. I also think it's probably going to pill sooner rather than later. I've worn it a fair bit and it hasn't. I've worn it a couple days at least, 2 or 3. It hasn't really pilled. So maybe not. But yeah, that was what I was wearing today. I'm going to take it back off because it's very warm. So that was finished object number 1. Finished object number 2 is, we're going to go with something I made, another thing I made before the honeymoon actually, and this is my second, let me think of the name, Miles shirt jacket by Ozetta Knitwear. And I went to look for this. It's from my partner. I have a light grey one, which I should put a picture of here. And I had decided that for the honeymoon, for the wedding, I wasn't going to knit anything, because I had no idea what I wanted to wear, and I would need a lot of time to knit something, and I didn't want to like force a decision. And I think if I had decided, I could have thought of some knitwear that would go with it, like a cardigan, socks, something. But because I hadn't decided and I was letting it like happen naturally, my decision on what I was going to wear, I didn't want to pressure myself by like trying to knit something to go with it. So I didn't do that. But I thought it'd be nice to do some sort of knitting, like make some wedding socks or something. And then when I saw the Miles shirt jacket, I was like, I need to make this as soon as it comes out because I love it. And also it's exactly my partner's style, like she would love to wear something like that. So I decided to make one for each of us for our honeymoon. And mine is like a light grey in the Manchalope, and hers is done. She didn't like any of the colours in the Manchalope, so I didn't get that. I got instead yarn from Eastex. So this is the Plutalope. Excuse me. This is the Plutalope in colour Galaxy. So it's black with bits of other colours throughout. I made quite a few modifications on this. The pattern is wonderful. I highly recommend it. It was my first pattern by Ozetta, and it was phenomenally written, really clear, video support throughout. I really recommend anyone who's thinking about doing a pattern from her, if they're anything like the Miles shirt jacket, really easy to follow. But I couldn't get gauge. And I tried doubling the Plutalope, but in the end just kept it single because it was going to be too... Did I keep it single? Maybe I didn't. I think I held it double in the end, but went up a needle. I went up to the normal size needle. In the end, my gauge was a little bit looser than the gauge I made the first one on, and that was okay because the wool I was using was denser and thicker, so the gauge being looser kind of worked for the fabric. But it meant that I basically knit the exact same size as what I made for myself, and it ended up a good size for my partner. Actually, no, I knit a size down. So my partner liked the fit of what I had for myself. She said, make it the same exact size as you just did. And I was like, great, that'll be easy. And then because it was different yarn, the gauge came out differently, so it wasn't easy. So what I had to do was, I had a thicker yarn, I had denser fabric. So then I went up needle sizes, got the right kind of fabric that I wanted, but then my gauge was much looser, so I had to go down a pattern size. So this is actually the extra small, whereas I made myself the, oh no, this, is this the extra small or the small? I think it's the extra small. For myself, I made a small, but I got the exact measurements of a medium because my gauge was loose, because it's always loose. For my partner, I made an extra small and got basically the measurements of a medium. So, my gauge is insane! This we know if we know anything about Naomi. So here it is. I made a lot of modifications to the arms because my partner didn't like how loose they were, so I made the decreases much more quickly, and I made it longer because she's taller. So this is the Miles shirt jacket in my partner's size. The arms actually fit me a lot better than my ones, because mine are like really oversized, and these ones like sort of, it's a big armhole opening, and so it results in a very, very wide sleeve. So I had to do some like really intense decreases to get down to the right sort of nice sort of cuff here. This is really lovely. I got these buttons on eBay, I think. They're all sort of galaxy themed as well. So yeah, basically, now I have one in each colour. I kind of doubt my partner's going to wear this much. She's not much of a knitwear wearer, oddly. Pretty much everything I've knit her for, like garment wise, she's not really ever worn. And to be fair, like, she owns a lot of knitwear that she never wears, so I think she just sort of isn't that into it. But she did wear it on honeymoon a lot. It's a good, like, it was a good just like really warm, basically dressing gown kind of thing. It was my first time working with Eastex, and this was the Flute, and it's very, very scratchy. Even after a wash, it's very scratchy. I imagine like with wear it'll soften up more, but I'm not sure how much wear that's gonna get. I'm sort of tempted to put some ribbon in around the neck, because look, I've just done all that. I'll show you some pictures of my partner wearing it, but I think the tendency with this is that it looks so good when it sort of sits like this, but its tendency is to kind of sort of come out, and I wonder if like it will help the shoulders and everything to sit nicely if there's like a bit, you see that in commercial knit garments sometimes where there's like a bit of, or even in t-shirts, there's like a bit of something more sturdy at the back, but I don't know, because this has a quite a sturdy cast off. I don't know. It's really cute in this colour actually, and I love the sleeves. My sleeves on mine are really, really, really loose, and I'm sort of considering putting elastic on them, but I kind of like that they're loose. It's a little bit like relaxed, but I really do like the sleeves on this one. Anyway, she was, when I found it in her wardrobe, she had it on a hanger. What the fuck is this? Shouldn't delete that, shouldn't have bad language. Yeah, that's no good. We don't want this on a hanger. It's going to misshapen it. I have to tell her off. Anyways, so that is the Miles shirt jacket number 2. Got finished just before we went on honeymoon. All good. Next, I'll show you my other honeymoon whip that got finished when we were on honeymoon, apart from the buttons. And that is my chunky bomber jacket, bomber vest by Witre Design. It is an oversized, extremely bulky vest, button-up vest design. It was really nice for me to work on this just leading up to the wedding. It was really like soft and reassuring. It's got 2 strands of Aran weight superwash mohair that I dyed with avocado in Canada. And then it's got 1 strand of silk mohair by Lillian Pine, a Canadian yarn dyer. There we go, another bit of American for you. And they combined to make a really nice colour, I think, because the avocado was like kind of muddy and like brown. Is this weird? Do I talk about yarn in American and then projects in British? What's happening? It kind of gives it like a muddy... The avocado was definitely like a muddy pink, and the mohair was definitely a very bright pink. Can I show you? No, I think I finished every speck of the mohair. Maybe. I don't know. I don't seem to have it to hand. But anyways, let me show you it. I don't know what this is. I think that's something unfortunate in the way I picked up stitches, maybe. Just doesn't look great, does it? It's like this one little thing that just draws the eye. Anyway. Here it is. When I first finished it, I loved it with the shirt that I wore on honeymoon. I didn't have the buttons yet, so it's just open. And then I got home and I put it on with like just, I don't know, pajama shirt or something, and I was like, oh, I don't like this, I'm gonna get rid of it. And it was just, I just hadn't styled it right. It looks really nice with like a t-shirt or something a bit, yeah, like a t-shirt or something a bit plain, because it's quite out there. But yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the buttons. It's worked in a huge needle size, I think like 10 mil for the body in brioche, and then this is like 5 mil. With the same yarn, you don't go down, but it's just a much tighter gauge, and you do a load of stockinette and do a folded hem for both of them, and then you do fabric buttons, which was very difficult with the thickness of the Aran weight yarn, but I managed it and I'm really proud of them. They look so cool. I think they really make the vest, I think they make it look really nice. So yeah, it's quite a sort of cartoony item, huge and bulky. It's also very heavy. It's got 500 grams of, more or less, I think, of yarn. That might be wrong. A bit less, maybe. This was actually leftovers from my Petite Knit Wednesday sweater, which I've now sold. So it was actually quite a lot of, like, I had a lot of leftovers for that, and I was able to make this after dyeing the yarn. Not much to say about the pattern. Like, I think it's similar to Scandi Designers, where it's a little bit less hand-holdy. I always have trouble with picking up big numbers of stitches around the armholes. Sometimes you listen to the ratio and you get a crazy number of stitches, and sometimes you listen to the stitch numbers and you get really uneven picking up. This time I listened to the stitch numbers because I had the experience with the Miles shirt jacket of listening to the ratios and ending up with huge sleeves. So I listened to the stitch numbers this time, and I folded it and put markers every quarter of the way. So then I had a much smaller space to be like, okay, you've got 15 stitches to pick up in this space. And then I was able to make it a lot more even. And then I also redid it when it wasn't even, just because I was like, no, let's get this done right. So overall, I'm more or less happy with it. I'm not really pleased with how big it is and how much space it takes up in my wardrobe. So I don't know if it's going to stick around. Both of these new pink items, I'm not 100% sure if they're sticking around. But for now, they're finished items and they're in my wardrobe. We'll see if they stay there. I've got 3 more finished objects, knitting, and then I've got 2 sewing finished objects. So next finished object is, I showed you the what face cloths that I made, I think, last time. Let me double check that I did. I don't actually know. I think I did. I think that I finished those a long time ago, but I showed you the washcloths that I made with the cotton I got in Goodwill in Canada. And I was planning to make a matching tea towel, which was a whip, and I finally finished that tea towel. So this is a Purl Soho pattern. It's free. It's called something that I'll show you. Oh look, it's been in use, so it's got a bit of dough on it. This is the tea towel that I made. It's quite a loose gauge, probably too loose for a tea towel, to be honest. But it's actually quite nice to, like, when you wash your hands or when you do the washing up, then to, like, dry your hands on this nice soft cotton tea towel. So it's a nice one for, like, drying hands and stuff. So I did that one, and then I was kind of just messing about with short rows and definitely failing, and made another tea towel, washclothy thingy-mabob. I started here and did this in stockinette because I just thought maybe stockinette was better for a tea towel, and I did this at a tighter gauge, and then I was like, no, I don't like stockinette for a tea towel, so I did the next bit in garter stitch, but I did the short rows wrong, so I should have done, I think, tiny short rows to big ones, and instead I did big short rows to... No, I should have done big to tiny, and I think I did tiny to big. Anyway, I ended up doing like a triangle going this way instead of... Listen, I don't know what I did, but I did it the wrong way round. Did it the opposite way round, so I ended up with something that went like this. And then I did the opposite, and I just kept going, and I was like, I don't care, and then I just finished off the yarn with a square. And then I went along to here, and I just picked up stitches all the way down, and I did some garter stitch, because this bottom bit was rolling, obviously. And I finished the garter stitch, and I just made a loop. And then also here, when I finished this short row bit, I came down here and I did some garter and picked up this side and went round and did some garter here. Honestly, it's just a shambles of rambling random stuff. And the reason it doesn't look quite so, like, knobbly is because of the garter that I did over the top of it. It kind of straightened it out a bit. But I don't care. It's just, I wanted to use up the rest of the yarn because it was bothering me that it wasn't used up. And I was kind of done with doing these. So I should have just put it away and done another tea towel later. But instead we got this completely random, chaotic piece of cloth, which is perfectly fine. And much smaller than the other tea towel that I made. So, it's also not blocked, and I'm not going to block it because I'm just going to use it and then wash it. The final knitting whip is, I think, actually no, I did make one more scarf number 1 for my partner, but I've got no idea where it is, and she doesn't either. I made it with Trubu in this colour. This is the leftovers. Really, really soft, but I don't know where it is. So, these are... I got a random ball of Patons Krom, and it was 150-gram ball from a Goodwill in Canada, again. Did I spend a lot of time in Goodwills in Canada? Maybe. And so I wanted to see if I could use a 50-gram ball of fingering weight wool to make my partner a pair of socks, and she has a size 10 UK foot, which in US is a women's size 12. So she's got big feet, and I was like, can I do this? So I had no idea, and what I decided to do was actually just do a sock tube, partially because it was one of those panic cast-ons, because we were going to what's it called, Secret Cinema, and I wanted to bring some knitting, but my partner was like, do not bring a large knitting project, and that was all I had at the time. So I was like, quick, ball of sock wool, I'm gonna just, I don't know what I'm making, I'll just make a tube and then I can decide later. So I just made a tube, and I made the whole tube. I'll show you as if it's what I did. Made the whole tube. It was just this long tube. And then I folded it in half, and I cut it, and I added a top to it, and then, well, what I had to do was decide what I was going to do, because when I folded it in half, I could see that I didn't have exactly the same number of stripes. So if I cut it exactly in half, I would have exactly the same length of tube, but I wouldn't have the exact same colours of stripes. But I decided to do it anyway, and what I ended up doing was I adjusted the length of, because I wanted to see like the ultimately how long I could get the sock, but I also wanted the stripes to match because they're very like stripy, so it would be really nice for them to match. So what I did was I cut it in half, and you can see there's not very much of blue here, and there's more blue here than here. So what I did was I just did a bit more ribbing to make it lengthwise match up perfectly with the stripes. And then I had a tube that more or less matched, and I added a toe. And the way I did the toe was my kind of random, eventually I'll get like the right formula, but this one, I actually wrote down the notes for how I did this toe. I'm still doing what's it called? Circular toe? Round toe? Round toe. Like a strange Naomi version of a round toe. So for this one I did, so like a typical round toe, you do 8, I feel like I say this every time, but you do 8 stitches decrease, 8 stitches decrease all the way around, and then you do 8 rows, and then you do 7 stitches decrease, 7 stitches decrease all the way around, and then you do 7 rows. And I think probably because my gauge is so different, that gives me a ridiculous toe. It just gives me an insane toe. Like, it's out of control. Like, if I were to do that, I should do it just once, just to see what it looks like. It would just be silly. Like, I'd have to, I think, if I did that, I'd have to start the toe, like, here, probably, and that would give me my toe. Anyways, so what I did for this one was I did 8 stitches decrease, and then I did 8 rows, and then I did 7 stitches decrease 7 rows, 6 stitches decrease 6 rows, and then I did 3. I skipped 5 and 4. You're supposed to go all the way down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just pull it tight, and it's a circular, no grafting. But I did 6 stitches decrease 6 rows, then I did 3 stitches decrease 3 rows, 2 stitches decrease 2 rows, 1 stitch decrease, and then I had 8 stitches left, and I grafted the 8 stitches because I prefer the grafting to the pulling tight, and that's what my toe looked like. So it was like a gradual, and then done, and then a tiny little graft there. If you can see it, a tiny little 4-stitch graft. I wanted a longer toe because I was matching this up with this. So essentially, my sock has matchy all down to the heel and all the way down here, and then this sock just has more pattern. This sock has a little bit more up here, and this sock has more down here. And so I did that, and I just made this toe longer and this toe shorter. So they basically match all the way, apart from a tiny bit here and a tiny bit up there, and I've used every single tiny scrap of Patons Krom 50 gram. And I've made a size 10 UK pair of socks that are pretty reasonable in foot length, in leg length. And for the heel, I thought I'd try doing a round toe for the heel, because what you do for the heel is you then pick up stitches and cut and then add the heel in. This is called an afterthought heel, and if you want, I would recommend Roxanne Richardson if you're interested in different heel and toe and basically any sock technique information. Check out Roxanne Richardson. She has a whole section of her YouTube that's about socks and different techniques. So I'll leave a link to her channel below, and you can check that stuff out. Everything else I'm talking about, I will do my best to link below. So I did a round toe as a heel. I would say I wasn't impressed with the results. It looks like this when you go this way. The round toe I did slightly differently. I did 8 stitches decrease, and then I only did 6 rounds. And then I did 7 stitches decrease and 5 rounds, 6 and 4 rounds, 5, 3 rounds, 4, 2 rounds, 3, 1 round. So I didn't quite follow the normal pattern. I kind of like this for a toe, actually. I might try that next time. It's a nice shape. But I don't know about for a heel. And I wrote down on my notes what I did so I could do the same on the other sock. And then I followed my notes, and I got something entirely different. So someone wasn't making good notes, because I'm pretty sure I followed the notes right. I think the problem was in the making of the notes. Anyway, this is the other heel, and it looks different because I basically finished it having followed the notes and not looking at the heel, and I ended up with a heel about this long. I was like, why didn't I just look at the other sock like I normally do and just copy what I did on the sock? But no, I tried to be all fancy and write notes and follow my notes, and that did not work at all. But anyways, I redid it. I just pulled it out and just grafted it with more stitches, so it looks a bit more like flat, but it apparently fits fine and feels alright for my partner. So yeah, a couple of nice socks done from a sock tube, which was really fun. It was fun to have to make decisions later. That's what this is. And I also quite enjoy cutting the wool to make a hole or cut it in half. It's quite fun. I find that quite fun. That is all of my knitting finished objects. And now, my fine friends, for my sewing. So, I was doing a lot of sewing for the wedding because I made all the napkins for the whole wedding. Not just me, my partner did as well. And it was just, we just got lots of fabric from the scrap shop where you get free scraps of things. Got lots of fabric, and mostly I think, what's it called? Tapestry? Not tapestry. Stuff for furniture fabric. But it was like cottony stuff that felt like you could use it for a napkin. And we just cut it into a size and then hemmed it. And that's all we did. So I think we did 75 of them. So it was a lot of hemming. So I wasn't really allowed to do any other sewing until I finished that. And that I've been so excited to sew since I got home from traveling for a year, basically. Where I couldn't really sew on my machine. So now that the wedding is over, I got to do some sewing. And I was very excited. The first thing that I did was use some scraps that we got and did some patchwork. And I can't really show you, I might have a picture maybe of the patchwork thing that I made, but then I quilted it. I did like a log cabin, like a square, I don't know if I can show you on this. It's like a small square and then like those things. I don't know if that's a log cabin, but that's what I did. The square and then a rectangle, a rectangle, a rectangle, a rectangle. And then I did, I think, 4 of those, put them together, and then I ordered some batting and I sewed it and I quilted. And then I watched a ton of videos because I was really ill, and I learned how to make a bag. And I went to John Lewis and I got some bias binding and a zip, and I made this. Look at it! Isn't it so cute? Isn't it the most amazing thing you've ever seen? I mean, just look at that. Look at the zip. Look at the inside. Look, I even tried to like bias bind my inside bits. I mean, it looks pretty shabby, but I did try. Look at it! I'm so pleased. I'm so excited about this. It's just amazing. I did not top stitch my zip, but I might go back and do that because now I understand why you would top stitch your zip, to keep the zip from doing that. I thought that the way forward was to bind the zip, the raw edge here, but that's not the way forward. I even made tabs and attached the tabs. I was so proud of myself, and this, I mean, I just can't tell you enough how pleasing this little bag is. I don't know what it is. It's like a giant pencil case, basically. But it just brings me all of the joy. It's just such a joyful, beautiful item. You can kind of see the log thingy that I was talking about. I don't know if it's a log cabin, but I did that, and then matching there, and then, I mean, it's all kind of like cut up now, but there's that one there, and then there's that one there. It was very cute as like a thing, like when it was in its square form. It looked really sweet, but now it looks like this. So I also had in mind, what I really wanted to do was use the scraps from, what I ended up doing was use the scraps from this and another one that I'll show you in my whips section, and do the thing that I'd seen. So I follow, what's her name? I'm gonna have to look up her name and put it here, but her Instagram is Cool Stitches, and she was doing this, but she got it from someone else who got it from someone else, so it didn't originate with her, also didn't originate with me. But anyway, this idea of basically taking scraps, chopping them up really small, and putting them inside of one of these organza bags. I mean, this isn't organza, like this is just some sort of plastic, but the point is it's clear. So you put it in one of these see-through bags, and then you quilt it, and you get a fabric like this. And I made another bag out of this quilted scrap fabric. And the idea of taking all of your sewing scraps, putting them in a bag, and then quilting it was just like the most beautiful concept I'd ever heard, because it's like you take all your scraps, you don't have to spend loads of time thinking of what to do with your scraps and this and that, and throw away the ones that you can't use and this and that. No, you just take them all, you cut them all up, you put them in a bag, and then now a piece of fabric that you can make a bag out of. And I was just like, that is the most amazing. I literally probably quilted in order to get a bunch of scraps in order to make this, because I was so excited about it. It's very difficult to quilt a bag filled with scraps that's like flattened out on my machine, because my machine's not like sunk into the table. So I can't just like arrange it and then leave it and then sew on top of it, because it flops over my machine, and then all the scraps just kind of like, you know, go into a heap at the bottom of the thing. So it was actually really difficult. I ended up getting a chopping board and like holding it whilst to keep it flat level whilst I was going through the machine. And that's really hard for me because my machine is hand operated. So I basically had no hands to like guide the actual fabric under the needle, because I was holding the what is it called? Chopping board. And in the end my partner came and cranked the thing whilst I did the like guiding and holding, because it was a bit hard. But anyways, here it is. It's so cool, and it's currently filled up to the brim with an acquisition, which I'll show you later. And then I'll show you the inside of this, because it's a bit shambolic as well. I didn't quite catch this tab when I sewed it. It was also there was bits that were really, really thick, so it was really quite difficult to get through the machine, especially the bit here where you like make a triangle and cut it, because then you've got like 6 layers, and each one of the layers, depending on how much scrap is there, might have like 5 or 6 or even like 10 layers of like fabric in it. So anyway, it was a whole thing. And it's not perfect, because like there's not fabric there that's like going through to the inside. But it was so cool, and I'm so excited, because the whole point was I wanted to do this with the scraps from my wedding dress and make a little bag or something, probably a little pouch out of the scraps from my wedding dress. And so this was my practice. I'm going to do one more practice, and then I'm going to do it with my wedding dress. Because I asked the sewer for the the seamstress for any scraps she had left over, because I wanted to do that specifically as a little remembery thing, and also because I paid for that fabric, damn it. Anyways, so those are all of my finished objects. Look at them all. They're all sitting there in a big heap. Look at all those finished objects. I'm gonna get some tea. It's been literally 52 minutes, and I'm gonna come back and do whips, and then probably have another break and do acquisitions. So catch you in a jiffy. Oh my goodness, so it's time to sit and knit with me. I had a couple questions for my Q&A about the wedding, so I'll just give you a little life update. I got married a few weeks ago. It's been a month and a week today. Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe it's been 6 weeks. My partner's one of those people who's like, always like, 5 days from today, or 5 weeks from today, we're going to be going to Barcelona, or 6 weeks from yesterday, we got married. You know, like, thinking about these things. I never think about these kinds of things. But it's sweet that she does. So I think it's been 6 weeks. Anyway, we were married on Friday, the 2nd of September, 2022. 2/9/22. And it was really lovely. It was so much fun. We had we got married in the park. My dad piped me in like a haggis. And if you don't know, my dad is Scottish and my mum is American. And I sort of grew up like back and forth between southwestern Scotland, Ayrshire, and the western US in Oregon. And now I live in London, so that's me on a boat with these people in the background. So anyway, that's partly one of the reasons why my accent just kind of wanders all over the place, does whatever it feels like doing, which is fine. We're all okay with that. It's okay. I say that a lot because I kind of am not okay with it. I sort of have a lot of I have a strangely large amount of baggage around my own accent for some reason. Why is it strange? I don't know why it's a strangely lot amount, but it feels like a strange thing to have a problem with, and I think that's probably why it moves around so much. But anyways, totally different subject. So my dad piped me in. We got married in a bandstand. I really wanted to get married outside. It's kind of a Jewish thing, but it's also kind of a thing that I really like. Anyways, we're going really personal. Like, I keep thinking of saying really personal stuff. Generally don't do that. Anyways, find it really uncomfortable. So, point is, we were married outside in a bandstand, and it was really beautiful and lovely, and we did our own vows, and Holly's were really lovely and wonderful, and mine were kind of silly but nice, which I think is what she would have appreciated. And so we were like actually married, which is kind of hard to do in the UK. It's hard to get married in most places. Like, there's so many rules about where you can get married, and if you want to do it outside, it's even less. And when I say the UK, what I mean is England, because England is different than Scotland. You can get married anywhere you like in Scotland. But in England, it's like, no, it has to be a permanent structure, it has to be publicly accessible, publicly bookable, and it has to be, like, covered. So if you want to get married outside, it has to be some permanent, like, covered structure. And even then, like, the person marrying you can, like, the person marrying you can decide on the day that it's too rainy, so you have to book an indoor venue as well, just in case. So anyway, it's a whole thing. It's very difficult. I'm just binding off now on this sock. And so you can see what I'm doing. So anyway, it's a whole thing. So we got married in the park. It was really nice. And we had bubbles, and then we had a picnic. So there was like a load of picnic baskets and blankets that we'd sourced from everywhere, and people just like filled up the basket, and there was with like food and drinks and fizz, and there was like cans and bottles, and people just chucked it in their basket and took a blanket and took some food and went into the park, into the lawn, and had a picnic, which was really nice because everyone kind of got a chance to like hang out with one another, and like it was very casual and it wasn't all that like forced. People could sit with whoever they wanted and do whatever they wanted. And we also had cricket and croquet and bowls, so it was really fun. Like, people were playing games. People that didn't know each other were like, there was a very intense game of cricket going on, game of croquet going on, with all the young men getting really intense with one another. And that was happening like whilst we were having our photos taken, which was really nice because normally that bit's a bit boring, I think, in weddings. And then, so we didn't really do that much like sitting and relaxing because we were mostly like getting photos and like shoving some food in our faces and like going around and talking to everyone. So that bit of the wedding, I felt like we didn't fully get to enjoy. Well, we did, we enjoyed it in it, but we didn't do the stuff that we had planned for everyone else to do, if you see what I mean. And we kind of hadn't really ever planned for that to be the case. So anyway, that was the first bit, and then everyone got on a double-decker bus, apart from me and Holly, and it was like a sort of vintage one. They were like 40 minutes late. So the whole of the wedding, like all the guests were just sitting around at the end of this park just waiting for it to arrive, and they never called or told anyone. So Holly was very stressed about it, but we were in a taxi going to a different location for a little surprise, and the guests eventually got the bus, and also the ice for the drinks arrived when we were leaving. It was meant to come at like 10 a.m. It came at 3 p.m. So I was like, no, we don't want it anymore. So that was the only like disaster. And Holly was like, oh, did you not book it? Did you not pay for it? And I was like, I thought I paid for it, but maybe I didn't. It was the one thing that I was sort of like on my own, like I'd booked and paid for. And I was like, well, typical me, didn't pay for it. And in the end, I had, because they were coming. And they just came, 167 hours too late. Anyways, so then the guests arrived at the Canal Museum, and which is where we were having dinner and the party. It was a London Canal Boat Museum, which is a really cool, quirky museum. If you're ever in London and have any interest in canal boats, go and check it out. And we arrived we were early because the guests were like late, the bus was late, so we got dropped off by the taxi outside of where we were going, and there was a Gales, so we just went to Gales and got a cup of tea and our full wedding regalia. I literally had my like bouquet in my hand and that was really fun. People were kind of just like and we were in Coldrops Yard in King's Cross, and then we got a narrowboat came and picked us up, which was really cool, and it had an all-female crew as well, which was fun. And we got a little ride in the narrowboat, just the two of us, which was really nice. And then we sort of like arrived, so all the guests were like waiting outside by the canal, in the Canal Museum, because they have like an outside bit. They were all waiting outside for us, and we arrived in style on the boat, which was very fun. And I'll pop a picture in because I think we do have one picture of that. And then we arrived and we had drinks and we had dinner, which was amazing. It's the best like wedding food I've ever had, and it was like mostly, this caterer is mostly veggie. Anyway, it was phenomenal, so good, very happy with that. And we had like a fun photo stand for our guest book, which was really nice, and everyone had loads of fun. And then we had dancing, we had a bit of, my dad played some fiddle, and we had a bit of Kayleeing, and then just normal stuff. And then we had a cheesecake, which it was like actually cheese, so just it looked like a cake, but it was just rounds of cheese, so we just had like cheese and crackers afterwards. And it was like the best day, so much fun. And so yeah, that was the wedding. And the question people asked, I think I put a thing on Instagram like Q&A about the wedding, if you're curious about anything. I got 2 questions in, and they were both about how did I choose what I was wearing. And that was definitely one of the topics of the wedding day as well, was because everyone was like, wow, about my wedding dress. And it took me a really long time to decide what I was going to wear. I've been engaged for at least 2 years. Got engaged in March of 2019, so 2.5 almost. And, it was kind of in the back of my mind, but I didn't, for whatever reason, my main priority with what I was going to wear was that I didn't push it, that I let it sort of like naturally decide itself. So I chatted with like various people about it, and was like, the thing is that I don't know anything about what I want to wear. Like, I don't know, do I want to wear a suit? Do I want to wear a dress? Do I want to wear, like anything about it? So I chatted to one of my friends who's really good at that kind of thing, like just like being like, okay. And we sort of discovered like, I want something. I was basically like, the things that were important to me was that it would be wearable again, and that it would be somehow like just astonishing and amazing, which I know are kind of contradictory, but kind of my whole thing was about like what I wanted to wear was everything about it was contradictory, because it was like, I want something feminine yet masculine. I want something astonishing but re-wearable. I want something like with a lot of we discovered that one of the things I was really attracted to was like a lot of like volume, like sculpture and volume, like and I didn't want it to be, I didn't actively want it to look bridal, but I wasn't opposed to it looking bridal. I didn't have anything wrong, there's nothing wrong with it looking bridal, but there was nothing drawing me to have it look bridal. So I didn't need it to be white per se. Like, I wanted it to surprise people and be strange. I also wanted it to be quite like astonishing from far away, because I knew we were going to be going, like I was going to be walking down a park path, was going to be my aisle basically. It was like a pathway framed with trees. I was going to start from pretty far off because we were going to do bagpipes, and then I was like, so I want it to be quite a striking image from far away. And so I was sort of like, looking at, then another friend who was very like good with fashion and that kind of thing, she was like, well, you just need to start making, like, going on Pinterest and just like clicking on things that you like and making buckets. So like, here's an idea, here's a way of, it could be like this or it could be like that. And so I had these things, I was like, oh, maybe it's, I wanted it to be really contrasty. So I wanted something maybe that was like ultra casual with like overly fancy, or like ultra ruffly with like ultra boyish something. And so I was, looking at different things. I was like, oh, a pinafore would be kind of cool, because that would be very casual looking. But if you did it with like an intensely amazing blouse or something, it could be really cool. And so that kind of thing. And then I saw this dress, and I'll put a picture up of the dress, by like a really fancy designer. I think the designer is Erdem. So fancy, I'd never heard of it before. And I was like, that dress is amazing. It was just exactly what I was thinking. It was like strange and weirdly casual, but weirdly over the top at the same time. But there were a few things I didn't like about it. I didn't like the puff sleeves, because I don't like a capped puff sleeve. I was looking at a lot of puff stuff, but like it was sort of puffed and longer. But like a cap, the sort of, so like if you're going Edwardian, fine, but like that sort of like, is it Regency, the like puffed little cap sleeve, I don't like at all. I think it's because I don't know why, but I think it's because maybe my arms are a bit big, so that cap thing, it just makes it look strange. I don't know. And my arms are not big, but they're just not like very small. So when you put a cap on top of like a normally sized arm, I don't know what I'm saying. Ignore all of it. I don't particularly aesthetically enjoy the look of that. So I didn't like that on the thing. I also didn't want it to have a train because I wanted to be able to rewear it. But I kind of loved the train at the same time. So basically that was one of the things. I loved that one and I kept thinking about it. But also it was like £3,700 or something. So I wasn't going to spend that on a wedding dress. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess you could potentially rewear that if, you know, you had something fancy enough, because it was, you know, as you see in the picture I put up, it's like a floral pattern, so it's not obviously bridal. And so I was like, so it's not like you couldn't wear it, but it would have to be something that you could wear a train to, which there's not that many things. So anyway, so I was like, okay, that's, you know, something that I like, and just keep looking at things that I like. And I had a lot of things that I liked that were like intense quantities of tulle, which I enjoyed as well. But I had a variety of other things. I'll show you some of the things that I had in my quote unquote buckets of like options, basically. And then I was chatting to a costume designer, and I was showing her my different buckets, and I was also showing her, like, because I'd also put together some pictures of me like feeling like I was looking my best, so things that are really my style and I really like, just to have more of an idea of that. And I was chatting to her, and I was like, basically, I was showing her some of the things, and then I sort of just went, look, and I showed her this dress, and I got like the and I showed it to her, and I was like, look, basically, if I could have this dress, but I could take the sleeves off of it, and I was, one of the looks that I was really, really liking was the look of like a high-waisted skirt that was long, and then like one of the options I was considering was doing the Barbaro blouse by Knitting for Olive, which is in just the silk, and it's this like scalloped blouse that's high-necked and has buttons down the back, and I thought would be really beautiful. And so I thought I could make that and have like a beautiful skirt with it, and that was a look I was considering. And I was like, I really like that look, like even like just like a really nice tulle skirt that goes out. And I was looking at some on like Needle and Thread, they have them. And so I was thinking, okay, I could do that, which is nice, but it doesn't have the like whoa factor that I kind of wanted. So anyways, that was also like that was like a main contender for me. And then there was this other dress that I'd looked at that was like a big structural dress made in like all silk, and that one was also really expensive. It was from a company called Anna Mason, London, Anna Mason. And it was like silk, but that kind of thick silk, you know, that sort of just sits there, and maybe taffeta maybe. And it had these big sleeves, and it kind of had a slit here, and it sort of went out like that. And it was like this like silvery grey colour, and it had some tears, and it was really, really nice. But again, it's the kind of thing that is like a slightly fancier version of what I wear every day, which was kind of what I wanted, because I did want to have something that I could rewear. But I don't know, I was very much considering it, but I wasn't pushing myself to decide, and that wasn't pushing me to decide it. You know, I was letting it kind of like decide itself, and it wasn't deciding itself. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And I was just chatting to her, and this was in weddings in September, and this was in April. Yeah. So I had remembered that no, it wasn't. It was in like June. It was in June, I think. God, I don't remember. I don't remember. I just remember going to a wedding festival or a wedding fair in like February, I think, and seeing some dresses that I liked, and I was like, oh, these are nice. And they were like, oh, great, when's your wedding? And I was like, September. And they're like, oh, 2023. And I was like, no, 2022, this year. And it was like February that year. And she was like, you don't have a dress yet? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, you need one now. you don't have time. And I was like, well, it's February and I'm getting married in September. So I count 8 months. That feels like a lot. Feels like a lot of time to get a dress. To achieve a dress in 8 months feels really doable. She was like, no. So I guess that's not how bridal dresses work. I guess you have to get those more in advance than 8 months. But that seems like a lot to me. Seems a bit crazy. But anyway, so that was cracking me up because it was like, I think it was maybe June, and I was just chatting to this costume designer, and I was showing her things I liked, and so anyways, I was showing her this dress, and I was like, if I could have it without the sleeves, and if I could make it so that the train bit could come off, and underneath I could have a skirt version of that dress with like some kind of like lacy top that came out all the way down to the sleeves, that would be like my perfect. That would be ideal, because then I could still have the like wearable everyday look, and I could still have the wow factor, and they could just be separatable, and also it would just look so cool. But that would only work if you would be able to make that profile look like that profile, where it looks like a dress, and then you take off the top bit and it's no longer a dress. I wouldn't want it to look like it was multiple pieces, obviously. And she was like, well, just do that then. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I've got I know seamstresses that could do that, that could easily do that. And I was like, really? And she was like, yeah. She's like, let's order some fabric, send it to her. I'll see if she wants to do it. And then tomorrow, if she does, she's replied to me, you can just order some practice fabric and she can do a try of it on a, like a toile. And I was like, so, literally, I just sketched what I wanted on top of the actual dress from the website, with like my finger on my phone using I'll show you the picture of that. And then she went away and did it, and I had a fitting with the practice fabric, and said what I wanted different and how I wanted it changed, and she went away and did that. And then it took me a long time to choose the fabric. The final fabric took so long to choose, because I have a really hard time looking at a piece of fabric and imagining it in a full thing. I just don't have very good visual imagination, like visual images when I think about things, I don't see images, so I don't have a good visual image situation. So when I see fabric, imagining it in a dress is quite difficult for me. And so anyway, I took a long time deciding what fabric I was going to do. In the end, originally we were saying we were going to do it in silk crepe to sheen, but we decided that actually cotton lawn, like Liberty Tana lawn cotton, would be just as good, and would be light enough, because it was so much ruffle. We wanted something really light so that there would be movement, and boy was there movement. So yeah, I ended up with this like really like straight cut, sort of straight fitting, like almost boxy top bit that kind of, she was like, it looks a bit cassocky, and I was like, yeah, it kind of does actually. And then that was attached to the longest, ruffliest, most gorgeous train. And I kept telling the seamstress, like, less train, less train. So we ended up with only just enough train to make it a train, which was exactly what I wanted. And then this, like, incredibly girly looking skirt. And the original skirt she had, the only thing I didn't like about it was I didn't like the pleats that she'd done. She'd done pleats and boning so that it would go really high up, because they didn't want to do the closing of the top bit very low, because they thought it would cut me off. But in the end, I really wanted it low, like almost pubic level low, like down here where the top bit would button to. And then it started with a skirt. So in the end, we didn't need the skirt to go so high. Like, originally the skirt was like here, so she needed boning, and I didn't like it. It wasn't the level of comfortable I wanted. It wasn't the look I wanted at the front, because there was pleating. It looked beautiful, made my waist look very nice, but it wasn't what I was after. I wanted a waistband, and also it wasn't necessary anymore because we had enough space to cover the waistband. The point was we didn't want the waistband showing when I had the top bit on, and so when we lowered that, we had the waistband here, just kind of at a normal waist level, and the buttons were all covered buttons, which was beautiful, but also took a long time to button up, and I don't know where I was going with that. But anyways, it was amazing because it just went from this like loose sort of shape to this like very shaped shape. Oh, and the thing that we basically couldn't decide was we were thinking of having like a cool bra on underneath, so that if I took the top bit off, I'd have like a more of a punky look, like a mesh top and a bra. But one of the other things that I liked was this pinafore look, and I was like, actually, what we could do is have like pinafore straps that go, so you don't see them when the top's on, obviously, but if you take it off, you've got these like pinafore straps that continue, so that the skirt is kind of still a dress almost. And I was like, and then if the pinafore straps weren't sewn in but just buttoned in, you could take those off later and you could have a different look for another day where it was just a skirt. And so yeah, I had the pinafore straps. The one thing I would say is the pinafore straps were not wide enough, so there was a little bit of like worry of, because I had nothing on underneath, and I didn't stick them to anything. I probably should have, but I didn't. Don't know why. Felt like it would just be, I'd feel uncomfortable, but I didn't. All day, if I had the sticky stuff, I would feel uncomfortable, but I didn't. I felt all day, I just felt amazing and beautiful and wonderful, and there was so much wonderful, like, just the feeling of walking with all of those ruffles just ruffling. It was like the most wonderful thing. So it just, and it was also like, when you have that much, like, the cloth around me was comforting. The amount of cloth that was around me, and the fact that it was light and soft. I'm starting to discover now, it seems, that I've definitely got that sort of, because I've self-diagnosed myself as autistic. I need to go to a GP and get properly diagnosed, but starting to discover I really do have some sort of, there are some like sensory, like, feeling things for me, and one of those things is like clothing being light on me, but also being like, I guess, lofty. Light and lofty is like my favourite feeling, and this, like, loads and loads of meters and meters and meters of this like ruffles fabric in this really, really light cotton just ruffling around my legs was just the most wonderful feeling. And I had pockets, so I had my vows in my pocket. I had pockets both in the outside vest and in the inside skirt, so there was pockets all the time, baby, which was excellent. And it was funny because when I got my vows out of the pocket of my dress during the ceremony, everybody laughed, and they were like, well, not laughed like, ha ha ha, you're so stupid, but like, wow, that's so cool. And I was like, I thought pockets in dresses were a lot more common than that. But yeah, I appreciated how much interest and joy my dress brought to everyone as well. I left the top bit on until we got to the evening, and at the first dance I took the top bit off, and it was like, reveal, it's a skirt and a top, because everyone kept asking, well, how does this work, what is this, is it like, is it a different piece, or is it, and I'm like, well, you're gonna have to wait and find out. So yeah, it was fun, everyone loved it. The other great thing is, with the top bit unbuttoned, it also looked really, really, really cool. So you had like your wedding look, you had your relaxed wedding look with the top bit open, and then you had your all the way off wedding look, which was just a skirt and a top and little like pinafore straps, and then and it was so much fun because I could grab the pockets of my outside bit, and with it unbuttoned, if I ran with my hands up, I had like these huge wings. And I would like get two people to stand across the dance floor from me, and I'd be like, ready? And I would walk and like sort of walk quickly towards them, and they would like come away, and they would just go under my wings, and it was so much fun. I don't know if people just were just what's the word, humoring me and pretending to enjoy it, or if it was really fun for them too, but it was so much fun for me. And yeah, and so then I took the skirt bit on honeymoon with me, and I wore it twice, just to be like, yeah, I'm wearing my wedding dress again. And so I wore the skirt. I couldn't wear the top bit because it was smelly. Let's just be honest here. We're all gonna be honest. It was smelly. It was like, because it was cut pretty close to my smelly oxters. Anyway, so yeah, and I didn't want like a train. We weren't going anywhere that fancy, so I just brought the skirt, which was gorgeous. I paired it with a t-shirt and wore it to this really fancy dinner, and it was wonderful. And then the second dinner in Ivalo, I think I also wore it with a t-shirt. No, I didn't. That time I wore it with like a lacy top, which was one that I'd bought thinking I might wear it at the wedding, but the lacy top was the lace, like in the end I just wore plain mesh, and that worked better with the pattern of the fabric, because lace was just like trying too hard to like battle with the pattern on the fabric. So yeah, I didn't do the lace, and that's why I didn't make the blouse that I was thinking of knitting, because I thought it would probably contrast too much with the amount of stuff going on with the dress. So yeah, I wore it with a blouse. The second time I wore it on honeymoon, and then when we came back, a couple of our friends who hadn't been able to make it to the wedding took us out for a nice dinner, and I wore it then too, as like you didn't make it to the wedding, so here's part of the wedding dress to see. But it was great. I wore it that time with the straps, with like the pinafore straps, and I wore it with my Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit, which I had finished, and Cumulus top, I guess, and it looked really cool. I thought, like this loose knitted top with this like skirt, and I think I might have a couple pictures of that to show you. So that was 33 minutes about my dress. It's amazing. I love it so much. Still hanging up. I haven't put it like away in the closet. It's still hanging up like in the room. Just because it's so beautiful. Okay. So if you got to the end, high five. You're amazing. I can't believe you did it. It took me 2 days. So I'm imagining it will take you a couple weeks, you know, like, oh yeah, has Naomi done a new episode? Oh no, she still has, I still have 2.5 hours left of that other episode. Great. You know, you can watch a bit of this every week. Maybe I'll release it in 2 parts. That might be a good idea, actually. So I'll do a final bit for both if I release it in 2 bits. So here we go. So thank you so much for watching this half of my podcast, concluding my finished objects, and I hope you enjoyed. If you would like to join the oddball along with Caroline from Caroline's Knits and I, we're basically doing a knit along where we share stuff that we're making out of the oddballs of wool that we have when we finish a project. That's like kind of enough to make another small project, but we kind of tend to just ignore. Join in by just hashtagging whatever you're doing with hashtag oddballalong. If you want to have a bit more community, there is a Discord server called njknits, and you can find it on Discord, or you can just pop me a DM on Instagram, and I can give you the link to the Discord. And there's like chat, and again there's like, you can have chat meetups with people, like video knit nights, or knit parties. And then give me a follow over on Instagram if you feel like it, and do a little subscribe if you feel like it, and a like. That would be wonderful. I would appreciate it very much. And next week, tune in for the second half of this video, because it's insanely long, where I will show you my whips and my acquisitions. Thanks so much for watching! See you later!